بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين رحمة للعالمين أبي القاسم محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين أما بعد فقد قال الله تعالى في كتاب الحكيم وهو أصدق الصادقين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وننزل من القرآن ما هو شفاء ورحمة للمؤمنين صلوات على محمد. We're in our fourth lecture. Is that correct? Fourth lecture? We're in our fourth lecture about the topic that we started discussing. And we started from very pertinent questions. I'm just reminding you and revising what we have done so far so that we can all follow the arguments that I'll be making today. We started off our lectures about ethics and we started to understand what is ethics. And you and I came to an understanding that ethics is the way you and I relate to one another. Relating human beings to one another means being aware of our rights and responsibilities. In the modern human rights language, the component of ethics is enormous. And we know that human rights language is always demanding the rights without speaking about responsibilities. It is assumed that once you observe the rights, the responsibilities will follow. What we are doing here is that we are looking at religious ethics. That secular ethics, we are dealing with religious ethics. We want to find out why ethics. Isn't religion sufficient enough for us not to need ethics? Or are they synonymous in the way they are introduced in the Islamic literature? Imam Ghazali, I must tell you, is very clear that deen is akhlaq, akhlaq is deen. He doesn't want to separate the two. So the moment you separate ethics from religion, religion is no more. Religion cannot sustain itself only spiritually and not connect itself morally. What I'm trying to say is that if religion is supposed to be bringing human beings together in a relationship, if religion is going to make humanity one community, then it needs some values. It needs some principles on the basis of which it can relate human beings to one another. And the moment it does it, that's when ethics begin. Are you with me? Religion is more geared towards connecting you to the spirituality, to the transcendence, to something beyond your reach without faith. You need faith to reach there. What you need for relating human beings, besides the faith, is a system of values, principles that can bring people together in a proper way. There are ethical ways of dealing on each and every matter that we handle as part of human action. Human activity is not free of rules and regulations, because there are entitlements and there are reciprocities. And all of these are connected with one thing that is very important in relationships, is how to maintain the sense of right and wrong. If you don't have the sense of right and wrong, then relationship might not work. You might be doing wrong to someone without you knowing that you are doing wrong. And you might be doing good to someone who might not understand what you are trying to do. In other words, you need those values in order for you to understand what ethics is. So we started off with these questions, by the way, in our first lecture, second lecture, third lecture, and today is the fourth lecture. We also try to understand that where does reason stand? Imam Ghazali and other scholars of the Sunni Muslims believe that revelation, that is scriptures, is more than enough to guide human beings in ethics. So they reject any idea in which we can say that human reason is also a guide to the right and the wrong. I want you to understand very carefully. The Sunni position is that human beings need the scripture to be guided in the matters of right and wrong. I want to say that that is not correct as far as the Quran is concerned. I'm making distinction between tradition and the scripture. I want to say that if Imam Ghazali is talking about the sufficiency of revelation, the sufficiency of the Quran and the Sunnah to guide you in the matters of ethics, he's only partially correct. He's not totally correct. Because the scripture, the Quran and the Sunnah, do not cover all the issues with which you and I are confronted today. Now what do we do? How do we handle those? In the hospital today, we are asking questions about who has the right to make a decision about the end of life. Is it the medical team? Is it the ethics committee? Is it the family of the patient? Who is going to make that decision? And we are torn between 2, 3, 4 different ideas. Those who emphasize reason, they say it is up to the medical team to do it. Those who are religious, they say, no, our religion will guide us what we need to do. And it is a battle of values in the hospital system today. You might be surprised, we have not been able to sort it out in the hospital situation, especially in critical care situation. We have not been able to come to a conclusion which authority should we believe in, or should we hand over the task of final decision making. What I'm suggesting is that Imam Ghazali is not totally correct when he says that the revelation is sufficient, it is self-sufficient. It doesn't need even the nature to guide it. The Quran is saying something different. The Quran is saying that you will be guided by God through the revelation, through the kitab, through what the Prophet receives. But before that, you are also being guided by something with which you are born. You are born with reason. You have the capacity within you to know what is right from what is wrong. And therefore, it is very important to keep in mind that when the Quran is talking about human capacity, human capability. It is holding humanity responsible even without religion. Let me explain. Even if you did not accept any religion as your religion, you are still bound by ethical boundaries. Are you with me? You cannot say, I am not bound by the morality of the action. You cannot say that. Because the Quran is silent on this matter. The Quran doesn't know about this banking system today. So I don't know if the interest taking is right or wrong. You need more experience with economic and political life of a nation in order for you to make such a decision. In other words, there is ethics involved because you are receiving money and you want to find out, is this money right or wrong? And you want to make a decision depending upon your very confidence that I'm being guided properly. Imam Ghazali, therefore, then, has avoided a major question in ethics that you and I are interested in, and we are following the school of Ahlul Bayt on this position, by the way. Even among the Sunnis, there are those who believe that human beings are guided by conscience, by reason, by an inner capacity, what I call in my book, infused morality. It is something with which you are born. Even if you did not accept religion, you can still be morally upright. Are you with me? Even if you don't accept religion, you are still accountable for your actions. You can't say, I did not accept any religion. I don't care, you know. I'm an atheist. I don't believe in anything. And I can do anything I want. No, you can't do anything you want. You have to follow moral principles, which are ingrained in you. I call it innate in you. You know it from the depth of your heart that this is right, this is wrong. Locke and Hume, they speak about the conscience and the power of the conscience. Also Kantian philosophy is based on this whole idea of the purity of the conscience. How conscience can guide you, can take you through. In other words, there is a moral authority within you that is telling you from right from the wrong, and you are bound to accept it. The problem is that if you leave human beings too dependent on their rationality, the only guarantee that is missing is that that rationality will not be influenced by the culture or political or social system. If you're living in a communist country, you have a different understanding of your social responsibility. You are in a capitalist country, it's a different way of looking at the wealth and the production of wealth and distribution of wealth. Everything is different. Therefore, the question arises, is your reason capable of guiding you through? Do you need some kind of transcendence? Let me put it very bluntly in the religious language. Is there an authority higher than your reason that can judge you? This is what we are looking for. So the Quran is taking us to the very important step, and until now we have been talking about these matters. What we are doing in this lecture today is we are trying to locate where is it in the Quran. Our objective in today's lecture is to find out where exactly should we be looking for our guidance. I have changed this, but the change PowerPoint is not there, but I'm just working on this so that you have something to watch while I'm talking about this matter. So let me move exactly where I need to be today. What I needed to be today was to take you to the practical aspect of developing morality. If we talk too much in abstraction, then you will never know what exactly is it that we are trying to achieve in these lectures. If we want to know how we should be interacting with other human beings in the society, there is secular society that has its own value system, that has its own experiences. Because what I have realized in my own book when I'm writing is that I need to follow Ibn Khaldun in some sense. Ibn Khaldun is telling me quite clearly in his history book that human experience is the best moral teacher. What you learn from experience, you will never learn from anywhere in the books. And the book actually captures the essence of your experiment and your experience living in a society. More than anything else, your everyday interaction is a good teacher. How you should conduct yourself, how you should build your character so that you become aware of the rights of the others and also protect your own rights. You also have an obligation to protect your own rights. We mentioned Iffa yesterday. In our lecture, we mentioned what we call how the 4 pillars that we identified. You remember those pillars? We mentioned the first pillar, patience. The second pillar, modesty. The third pillar, that's right. The fourth pillar, bravery. Bravery was the third, and the fourth was the justice. All these 4 pillars which we have identified are based on not only Ibn Khaldun's reading of history, but also on the basis of what the Quran is teaching us. So you need 4 things to work with all the decision making in your life. How can you make a decision without having those pillars? How can you build an ethical edifice without having the pillars in place? So the 4 pillars are recognized. Now what we are talking about is how to process the human character. So we mentioned Iffa. I want to move on. If you have, we already mentioned istifaf, ta'affuf, temptation, exactly in avoiding shameful deeds. Now, the practical aspects of learning that value. In other words, what I'm working on is central values in the Quran. How those central values are going to help us to understand what we need to do as human beings. So, practical aspects of istifaf, which is iffa, which is modesty, which is moderation of every kind, is abstinence in the production of wealth. For the Quran, production of wealth is a very important issue. And I'll tell you, recently Salim sent me a lecture on the Prophet's business life. And I think I enjoyed the lecture because it really pointed me towards what I have read in the history all the time. That before the Prophet became the Prophet, and even after he became the Prophet, he still maintained a close watch over the production of wealth. How do you produce the wealth? Who is responsible for the way you are producing the wealth? How should you be taxed? Zakat, khums. You're talking about kharaj, land tax. All of these matters were introduced by the Prophet. There's a book in English, Taxation in Early Islam. And you can read that. It's a research on what kind of ideas the Prophet introduced in Arabia in 7th century. In other words, there was a full consciousness of the economic life of the community. So the focus of the Quran, I'm not surprised. The language is also business language. You give this much, you get this much. If I do this favor to you, you did this, you do that favor to me. In other words, there's always an exchange. It's not only social transaction, it's also a business transaction. But the third element is very important, protection of children and advancing their welfare, avoiding extending hand to seek favors. That means we teach the community, we teach humanity to become self-sufficient. But self-sufficiency not only for yourself, but for the future generations also. Iffa in language, refraining from bad talk in any of its variant forms. But let me move now to the further value that we need to develop in today's lecture. It's a very important issue, is muraqabah. Muraqabah is actually, let me translate it very easily in English, to be considerate. I'm considerate of your rights on me. As audience, you have a right on me. As a speaker, I have certain rights on you. We are reciprocally handling each other. We are keeping an eye. Ibn Khaldun says very clearly that when you speak in public, remember there are two eyes on you. The eyes of God and the eyes of the people. You are all watching me, what I'm saying. If I say something irresponsibly, you would catch me. You would also know, by the way, even if you are not at the same level of education as I am, you would know when I'm bluffing. You would know it. If you're smart enough, you will say, oh, come on, he's making it up. That's not true. In other words, you are smart listeners. And Ibn Khaldun says, watch out. You're not speaking only in the presence of the divine, you're also speaking in the presence of the people. This whole process is known in Arabic as muraqabah. Watching over each other, watching over one another, being considerate of one another. Many times you and I forget that we are not being considerate of somebody's, health, somebody's time. I remember whenever I'm eating, I don't want to be disturbed when I'm eating, but people want to talk, and I can't handle it. Now, they are not then following the muraqabah, because I need my time to take my meal, as much as you need your time to take it. Now, you might be enjoying conversation while eating, but I don't enjoy it. Now, that's my consideration. Now, what does it mean? There is reciprocal responsibility of handling the muraqabah. Let's understand this. And I'm coming directly to the text here. Muraqabah in ethics. Muraqabah in ethics. Please note this. Muraqabah in ethics is to be considerate about other human beings in your life. You are never alone. You are with somebody. That somebody sometimes is very close to you, and you are very carefully weighing how to behave yourself, how to conduct yourself, so that you don't become a burden or you don't become oblivious of the presence of the others. This is very important to do that. He says this, وَالْمُرَاقَبَ بِمَعَنِ الْأَخْلَاقِ بِمَعَنِ الْأَخْلَاقِ هي ملاحظة الإنسان. वो इंसान जो मुलाहजा करे, oh, that human being who cares for how people feel about certain things. Some people become completely oblivious of others and their rights. That muraqabah has been disturbed. Not only this, in every movement that he makes, taharrukat kullaha khataratiha, even in your thoughts. I'm sitting here, I'm judging you in my mind, and I'm doing injustice to you. I'm not supposed to judge you. I don't even know you. I have not even met you. And you are judging me, I'm judging you. This is against the principle of muraqabah. But what does muraqabah do? Why is Quran emphasizing muraqabah? Quran is introducing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as Raqib, as the one who cares. La yukallifullahu nafsan illa wusaha. God never burdens you with any responsibility if you are not up to it. He never imposes anything beyond your capacity. In other words, God measures your capacity before He puts the responsibility on you. Therefore, God is Raqib. Are you getting the sense of Raqib? Riqaba, Raqib, Muraqaba is one of the major pillars of what major processing, value of how you deal with other human beings. Keeping an eye. God's name Ar-Raqib suggests that God is constantly considerate of His creatures. He never burdens you. Look at the way today, when I'm looking at the medical profession today. If it was left to the nature, nature might have taken different course of action on somebody who is critically or terminally ill. But today, the interference of medicine today requires the medical team to understand its own limits. Do you see what I'm talking about? Medical professionals are not gods. They should know their limits and what things they do for their patients. Now, that means that they are stepping into God's, shoes. They are acting like God. And they're saying that we will make the decision whether this person lives or dies. And that's why biomedical ethics started in 1970s. There was a list of the people who the doctors decided they should die. 1970s, Washington State. And they were making decisions in the hospital. And it created a havoc in the society. Who are they to make those decisions? How can they make such a decision about any patient? They have no such right given to them. What I'm talking about, that the Quran is saying that God is the one who is taking care of you, He's considerate of you. Therefore, in your relationships, you must be considerate of one another. You must be very careful of what kind of burden you are putting on someone, or what kind of, issues you are raising for someone else. In ethics, it means human consideration or protection of oneself from any dangers. Are you getting that sense? You are trying to consider, you will not put yourself in any danger. You are not supposed to do that. You must be watchful of what you are doing. You must know your own capacity. You must know your own abilities. You can't overdo things. When you overdo things, you are going to hurt yourself, and you are going against the value of Raqib. How do we do this? How do we strengthen it? I don't want to leave you with an abstract idea about muraqabah. Consideration seems to be very, we use it in the legal language, by the way. It's a very important term. In due consideration of this case. This is what the jury has decided. Due consideration means looking at the pros and cons of the situation, they have come to this decision. And the decision is passed. In many issues, by the way, when your children come to you, Dad, I want to go to this particular football game, and the ticket will cost me now $250. There's a consideration of the youth who wants to see something with his own eyes, and you are trying to persuade that, the game is going to be broadcast. Why don't you just sit in front of TV and watch it? So no, I want to be in the presence of the crowd. This is what we call the due consideration. This is what the parents do. This is what the elders do. Muraqabah is located in the very being of the person. Nafsan wa aynan. That's what the scholars are saying. It is something connected with your own personal life. And it is consolidated with the remembrance of Allah. Now, for the first time, I'm bringing here the value of dhikr that you do. Why are du'as important? Why is it important to remember God? What does it do to God if you don't remember God? It doesn't do anything. But when you don't remember God, you are the loser. You're not getting out anything. The dhikr is going to strengthen you. I'm talking about something that this next point is I'm going to make it there. Al-Raqib, Al-Hafid, Al-Alim, Al-Sami, Al-Basir. These are all God's attributes. What do they mean? The one who is considerate, the one who is protecting, the one who knows about my situation, the one who hears me, the one who sees me. You see, what you are developing is what Ibn Khaldun mentioned yesterday. I said that one of the favorite ayahs of Ibn Khaldun is وَهُوَ مَعَكُمْ أَيْنَ كُنْتُمْ. He is with you wherever you are. You are never alone. You are never by yourself. You're always. Some of my students say, oh, this is frightful that God is always with you. I said, yeah, well, better be. Better be. Because that creates what we call a sense of somebody is watching over you. Somebody is looking at you. Somebody is evaluating your performance all the time. How can you be negligent about it? You can be negligent if you want to. Or he cites this verse, يَعْلَمُ خَائِنَةَ الْأَعْيُنِ وَمَا تَخْفِي الصُّدُورِ. He knows broadly what we show in our eyes. He can read our eyes, and he can also read what is hidden in our hearts. In other words, how do we develop that sense in us? It's very important. To learn the moral principles, this is extremely important. How do you develop what we call the moral spiritual consciousness? I'm talking about awareness. Something that is part of you. And these are the names of God. And by remembering them, and this is what all the teachers are saying, that what you need to do is develop a dhikr, a pattern of dhikr. Let me put it in the modern language. You need to develop a pattern of meditation. Meditate. How do you meditate? You meditate on Rahim, the kindness, compassionate of God. You meditate on Kareem, on the noble God. How about contemplating on considerate God? The Creator who has created me, who knows everything about me, who knows my needs. Should I not be trusting Him more than anybody else? But how do you develop the trust? Developing that trust is very, very difficult. This is what we call the meditative process that internalizes the attributes of the divine. I've used the word internalization. What does that mean, internalization? It means whenever you say Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, it's impossible for you to be other than kind. Are you with me? If you're not kind in the way you are dealing with this world, if you're not kind in dealing with one another, then you are not entitled to say Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. You might say it ritually. That's up to you. You're imposing yourself on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Otherwise, if you say Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, that means, Ya Allah, you are so compassionate, and I want to follow you in your compassion. You see what Bismillah, therefore Imam Ali said, with every action that you say Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, you should say Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim with everything that you do. Even if you're going to the toilet, you can say Bismillah in your heart. You can say it. In other words, you are internalizing Bismillah in such a way that at every step of your action, you are trying to see, am I being cruel or am I being kind? And the moment the answer comes, you are being cruel. Look at the way you say these things. Aren't you ashamed of yourself to say those things like that? You shouldn't be saying like this. The moment you do this, you are internalizing it. Are you with me? What does internalization process is? The process is, how do I strengthen my inner powers? I've already said, and I'm repeating. The moral ability is ingrained in us, is part of our nature. Despite what Imam Ghazali says about the nature, and he's worried about it. He's worried about the revolution that will be created against the rulers. Yes. He's worried about that. If they believe in the natural law, these Muslims, then they will take upon themselves to be responsible and fight the wrong governments. So we have in fiqh, ahkam al-bughat. There's no irregular warfare in Islamic jurisprudence. There is a warfare that is not regular because the leader is not a usual commander. The government is unjust. The people are tired of the government. They come together under one leader. And they say, this is our leader. He's going to be our spokesman for the government. And that person is sent in the government. He is sent to the Khalifa. It tells him, look, you better change your ways, otherwise we'll overthrow you. Or who told you? I have followers. This is known as shawkat. This is known as shawka. That means I have the support of the entire community behind me. Therefore, I'm talking to you as a representative of the community. This is known as ahkam al-bughat. If you maintain the natural law, then Ghazali was worried that there will be revolution every day. people will take upon themselves to say, we are naturally empowered. We know what we need. We need a just government. This government is not just, it's overtaxing us. This is wrongly treating us. How can we accept this government? And they go and this is, by the way, is known in the American parlance as irregular warfare. We don't call it irregular warfare, we call it ahkam al-bughat, your right to rise against unjust authorities. Your right to rise against unjust authorities. And the whole thing is built around, by the way, the jihad of Imam Ali against the Khawarij. All the rulings go back to Siffin. All the rulings go back to Haruriya, to Nahrawan, all these battles. They provided the paradigm. They provided the example how people can rise against the government, against the central authority to demand their rights, to demand, some kind of relief for themselves. Drawing close to God sensibly and personally, continuously, these are heavy, statements. In the state of alertness, respecting the Creator God's majesty, perfection, and beauty, and improving the sincerity towards God. This is the function of Iman. Now we know what religion demands from you and me. Religion is demanding what we call the change of attitude. You are not worried about what people think. You are worried about what God will think about you. Because God is the one who is providing you with the consideration that you are looking for. In other words, what we have done is that in this lecture, what I have done is that I have tried to find where are the challenges. The challenges are in our understanding of the goal of the creature vis-a-vis the Creator. What exactly are we demanding from God? What exactly God is doing for us? When you keep this together, then you get the principle on which you function. I need to mention this small event in the life of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It is speaking about your ability. You are supposed to have enough power to withstand any kind of challenge to you. A man came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. جاء رجل إلى رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم وقال له يا رسول الله أرأيت إن جاء رجل يريد أخذ المال. Can you tell me about this thing? He's asking the Prophet. Have you considered? Ara'ayta here is, have you considered a situation whereby somebody comes and threatens me and says, I'm going to take away your goods. I'm going to snatch the goods from you. Ya Rasulullah, what do you think I should do? Somebody is wrongfully going to snatch my property from me. What should I do? Then, Ya Rasulullah, أرأيت إن جاء رجل يريد أخذ المال أن اغتصابا. He's actually trying to snatch it from me. The Rasulullah said, لا تؤتيه, don't give him. Refuse to give him. Refuse to hand over the goods to him. Oh. قال الرجل أرأيت أن قاتلني. What if he fights me? What if he fights me? And he has a weapon or something, he's fighting me. Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, فقال الرسول قاتله, fight him. Don't give him. If he's snatching your goods, don't give him. If he's fighting for that, don't just stand there and say, oh, let him take away. No, you fight him. قال الرجل أرأيت أن قاتلني قاتله فقال الرجل أرأيت إن قتلني. Consider the situation if he kills me. What should I do? قال الرسول قال, he said, فقال الرسول فَأَنْتَ شَهِيد. If you get killed, then you are a martyr. Because you died for the right cause. This is what it means, by the way, shaheed. You die for the right cause. This man was not very well. أَرَأَيْتَ إِن قَتَلْتُهُ? Have you considered me killing him? فَقَالَ الرَّسُولُ هُوَ فِي النَّارِ. He's in the fire. If you kill him, he's in the fire, because it's not your fault that you killed him. He came to snatch your goods. In other words, what the story is, I'm not asking the question about its authenticity. What I'm asking here is the true level of responsibility. What do you do when your rights are challenged? Do you stand by, not doing anything about it? Or are you going to fight for it? What it's simply saying is that you better fight for your rights, because you can't give in. That's not an ethical position that can be compromised. The ethics requires you stand firm in what you believe. That person is going to hurt you. He's going to snatch your goods, and you stand there and say, let him do it? No, you can't let him do it. In other words, what the Prophet ﷺ is teaching is a very important principle in the ethical dealing of those who threaten you. Yes. Should you be giving in? Should you say, no, I won't do anything? And nothing will happen to me? And indifference is not the solution to a moral dilemma. When you're faced with a moral dilemma, you can't be indifferent. What Ibn Khaldun made possible for me to do was to raise a very important issue in my understanding of ethics in Islam. For the first time, I started looking at the decision-making process in the fiqh itself, in jurisprudence. I came to the understanding that jurists are not making decisions on the reality that they examine. Rather, they are making a decision on the ideals. When you put a question, there's an idealism there. Let's say you put a question, what should we do? Should we continue to feed terminally ill patient? Should we continue to feed terminally ill patient? And the answer would be, that in the medical ethics, you need to do anything possible to keep the life, going. But in religious idealism, life is sacred. You can't let somebody die like that. You have to do everything possible. How about taking into consideration what we call all the muraqabah, all the other factors that are to be considered now in making that decision? And when you do consider those aspects, then the decision is different than the idealistic decision. Ideally, you would say the terminally ill patient must be fed, and nothing should be stopped, no ventilator, nothing should be stopped, and this is something required. Some of the Maraja have ruled that way, which is incorrect. On what ground is incorrect? Because they have not considered the reality of the family, the reality of the financial situation of the family, and that who is paying the bills of the sick person. If they did that, then they would have come to a different conclusion. In other words, they have not followed the muraqabah. Are you with me? They have not considered all the aspects of the sickness of the person. We are on a very solemn day of the history. And that solemn day is the shahadat of Imam Ali alayhi salam. Having said everything and anything about the ethics, once you open the chapter of the Battle of Kufa, the Battle of Nahrawan, the Battle of, Harura, well, what you discover is a total lack of morality on the grounds that there was no ethics involved on the battlefield. Because there are two things in the rules of war. In the laws of war, we talk about the ability of the people to strike you. And the other part is to deal with how do we maintain the moral outlook and humanitarian aspects of the war. What happens if we catch the prisoners of war? What happens if a person is injured? What do we do to that? When you consider the battles of the Prophet ﷺ, one thing that is very important to learn from those battles is that he was totally committed to the values of justice. That whenever the war took place, whenever there were skirmishes or battles being fought, the rules were applied that you cannot touch women, you cannot touch the plants, you cannot touch the cities. In other words, you can have combatant fighting a combatant in other part of the, of the territory, but not in the city. City wars were forbidden. That no, you don't enter the city. You don't destroy the cities. You don't destroy the civilization, so to speak. Imam Ali became the emblem and the standard. Imam Shafi says in his fiqh that all the laws about ahkam al-bughad, of the rebellion or the wars of justice that were fought, the paradigm goes back to Ali ibn Abi Talib. Ali was the one who taught us how to deal with it. Nakithin, those who break their contract, they break their promises, they don't keep their promises. In other words, you have people who are part of your citizenry. Imagine in the modern state, somebody says, I'm not going to pay taxes to the government. This is going against the government. And the government can imprison that person, can penalize that person, saying that no, you are bound by the contractual agreement that we have, that we provide the services and you pay the taxes. In the same way, the wars that were fought, and Imam was leading some of the wars where actually he was the one who was leading them. And he was sometimes all alone in what he was doing. And yet you find that the principles that he followed were very, very strict. Imam Ali is known to be the paradigm of the morality that the Quran teaches. And I'm not exaggerating. When you look at his life, when you look at Nahjul Balagha, at every stage, Imam Ali stands out as the one who was never willing to compromise. And therefore I have maintained in my thesis that if we want to learn the ethics of the Quran, then we need to somehow explore the life of Imam Ali. What did he believe in? How did he continue his battles? What did he do in order to achieve his ends? And what we find to be true is that even on a day like today, when they caught Ibn Muljam, Abdul Rahman Ibn Muljam, and brought him in his presence, they were demanding that this should be what we call a homicide for a homicide, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, a life for a life. He should be also beheaded. Imam Ali said, no. He's telling now Imam Hassan that here I am, if I'm going to live, then I will decide the fate of my killer. But as long as I'm alive, you feed him what you eat. You give him the drink that he needs. In other words, you take care of him. And when the time comes, if I'm gone, then you exact the revenge with only one strike that he did. You will not overdo it. In other words, there was this sense of, okay, you are the victims. You, my family, you have suffered because I've been killed. And because I'm your father. But don't go overboard in seeking the revenge. You will seek the revenge, but you will keep within the limits. And this is what we find, that, when Imam Hassan, it came, all right, whatever you eat, he eats. Whatever you drink, they drink. In other words, there was this kind of compassion to be found in the leadership. And therefore, it's not surprising that today, after the burial was over, Imam Hassan was moving back to the Baytul Sharaf, where the house was located. And on the way, he hears somebody's crying. Where is my Imam? Where is my Imam? Aina Imami? Where is my Imam? And Imam Hassan draws closer and finds that there is a ditch there. And in the ditch there is a poor man who has been there sick. And Imam Hassan is asking, who are you calling for? He said, I used to get a visitor every day who would bring food for me, who would bring drink for me. This is the Imam that we are believing in. He brought all this, he took care of me. Said, yes, but that man is no more alive. I'll take care of you. And Imam Hassan goes back and brings the food and everything for him. And by the time he gets back, the poor man had died. He could not take the shock that the Imam had, been killed. In other words, that kind of paradigm, that kind of compassion, where would we get it today? Where would we find that today? Where would be the standard of ethics that you and I would follow? When you want to follow someone, when you want to follow the Imam that you love that Imam, who would you look at for the example? And little wonder that for 50 years, Banu Umayyah cursed Imam Ali, by the way, for 50 years. On all the members of Arabia, everywhere Imam Ali was cursed because there was a fear that Imam Ali would generate some kind of loyalty and would overthrow the unjust government. And that was the reason why when they were stopping, it took 50 years of propaganda. Imagine children growing up, generation growing up, hating Imam Ali. And I think that in the Islamic history, there has been no other Imam who has suffered this kind of injustices than Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib. Believe me. Even if Imam Hussein was killed in Karbala with 3 days of hunger and thirst, but what Imam Ali suffered, Imam Hussein did not suffer, because Imam Hussein saw the enemy right in front of him. They were there to kill him. He knew these are the ones who will kill me. He fought them until the last moment. He did not leave them. He did not give up his own understanding of what was his responsibility. But look at the Imam Ali. Look at Imam Hassan. They were faced with people who had double loyalties, who were not the followers of Imam. They were munafiqeen. They were hypocrites. And that's what we learn with very hard lesson, that on the 21st of Ramadan, you and I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ya Allah, Ya Allah, for the sake of Imam Ali, give us the ability to become the true followers of Imam Ali. Ya Allah, for the sake of Imam Ali, give ability to our youths, to our children, to do what is necessary for them to become ethically sound, morally sound. I'm going to read the dua, very short dua. That's very short dua, but I want you to participate with me. Because what I have discovered in this dua is what I'm searching for an answer to many of the issues today. There are many issues that are bothering me. I have a sister who is ill, and I don't know what will happen. I have no way of understanding the wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I have no way to understand it. As much as I try to understand, I'm not able to understand. I'm not able to decipher. The only hope I have is in this small dua that I want to read, that I want us to read, all of us. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin وآل محمد يا مفزعي عند كربتي ويا غوثي عند شدتي إليك فزعت وبك استغثت وبك لست لا ألوذ بسواك. I have no other way to go. I have no other person to talk to. I have nobody else to bring this problem to but you, Ya Allah. You are my only hope that you will listen. You are my only hope that you will do something about it. وَلَا أَطْلُبُ الْفَرَجَ إِلَّا مِنْكَ. I have nobody to ask for deliverance but from you. فَأَغِثْنِي, come to my help. وَفَرِّجْ عَنِّي يَا مَنْ يَقْبَلُ الْيَسِيرُ وَيَعْفُ عَنِ الْكَثِيرُ. Even little that I offer you, you willingly accept it. And you are always forgiving me a lot more than I deserve to be forgiven, Ya Allah. اقبل من اليسير, accept from me the little that I can offer you. وَعَفُ عَنِّي كَثِيرٌ, forgive me. إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ الْغَفُورُ الرَّحِيمُ. اللهم إني أسألك إيمانا تباشر به قلبي ويقينا حتى أعلم أنه لن يصيبني إلا ما كتبت لي. I'm asking you, Ya Allah, give me the faith that it shines in front of me, a source of my hope, source of my light, and help me understand that nothing will touch me except that which you have written for me. What you have written for me, I'll have to face it. ما كتبت لي ورضني من العيش بما قسمت لي. Make me satisfied with what you have given me. يا أرحم الراحمين. Let's do it together. يا أدتي في كربتي ويا صاحبي في شدتي. In the most difficult moments, you are my friend, Ya Allah. Ya wali fi ni'mati, you are the one who has provided me with all these blessings. Wa ya ghayati fi raghbati. Anta satiru awrati, you hide my defects, Ya Allah. Wal aminu rawati, and make me feel secure. Wa muqilu athrati, and you are the one who brings down all the difficulties to something that is very easy. Faghfir li khati'ati. Ya Allah, forgive me my shortcomings. Ya Arhamar Rahimin, oh the merciful of mercifuls. Allahumma salli ala